Under the blazing sun of Tondo, Manila, a frail old man sat on a wooden bench beside his small carinderia. The smell of fried fish and garlic rice lingered in the air, mixing with the distant hum of jeepneys and laughter of children playing tumbang preso in the narrow alley. His name was Mang Lito Reyes, 71 years old, widowed, and living a life that had seen both the cruelty of war and the quiet beauty of ordinary survival. For most people who passed him daily, Mang Lito was just another face among the millions of Filipinos struggling to make ends meet. But those who knew him, the neighbors who'd grown up eating his sinigang and listening to his late-night stories, knew that behind his wrinkled smile was a heart full of unspoken memories. He was a war veteran. Not many knew the full story. Most assumed he fought in some nameless battle long ago, but in truth, he had served as a peacekeeping soldier under the United Nations, stationed in the Middle East during the late 1970s. He'd seen death, he'd seen hunger, he'd seen children orphaned by wars that were not their own. And when he came home, the government gave him a medal, a handshake, and a pension barely enough to buy rice for a week. Still, he smiled. Still, he sang. Singing was his refuge, a habit he learned from his late wife, Lorna. She had loved to hear him sing kundimans while they cooked dinner, her laughter echoing through the walls of their old home. When she died of pneumonia 15 years ago, the house fell silent. But Mang Lito kept singing, not for an audience, but to keep his memories alive. Every morning, before opening his carinderia, he would sit by the door, strumming an old guitar with a missing string, his rough voice breaking softly through the dawn. Dahil sa'yo, ako'y lumagaya. He never imagined that this voice, weathered by time and pain, would one day travel across the world and touch the heart of Simon Cowell himself. It all began with his granddaughter, Mia. Mia was 19, a nursing student who helped her grandfather run the carinderia on weekends. She adored him, his stories, his simplicity, his stubborn refusal to rest. But what she loved most was his singing. Every time he sang, the neighbors would stop to listen. The kids would clap, some would even cry. "Lolo, you should join Filipinos Got Talent," she'd tease one afternoon as she washed dishes. "Ay naku, Mia," he'd laugh, shaking his head. "That's for young ones like you. This voice is all ready for the cemetery." But one night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Mia secretly filmed him. He was sitting outside, singing Ikaw by Sharon Cuneta, his voice trembling yet sincere. She uploaded the video on TikTok with the caption, "Greater than, my Lolo, a retired Filipino soldier, still sings for my late Lola every night. Red Heart Philippines #hope #Filipino veteran." By morning, the video had gone viral. Within 24 hours, it had millions of views. People from all over the world left comments. "Greater than, this made me cry. His voice has soul. Protect this man at all costs." Then came a message from a foreign number. It was from a producer of America's Got Talent. Mia nearly dropped her phone. She ran to her grandfather, who was napping on a bamboo chair, a towel draped over his face. "Lolo, Lolo, they want you in America," she screamed. Mang Lito sat up, confused. "America? Why? I didn't borrow money from anyone there." Mia laughed and explained everything. The producer wanted him to audition. They'd seen the video and were moved by his story, a Filipino veteran who still sang for love and hope. They wanted him to perform live in Los Angeles. At first, he refused. "I am too old, Anik. I don't even have nice shoes." But Mia held his hand. "Lolo, you always tell me never to give up on dreams. Maybe this is yours." He looked at her, the same determination shining in her eyes that he once saw in Lorna's. And in that moment, he whispered to himself, "Maybe it's time to sing one last song, not for myself, but for all who have forgotten what hope sounds like." It took months of paperwork, sponsorship, and community fundraising, but eventually, Mang Lito found himself standing in the immigration line at LAX, clutching his guitar case like it was his last treasure. Mia had accompanied him as his translator and cheerleader. When they arrived at the America's Got Talent studio, everything felt surreal. The bright lights, the massive stage, the thousands of faces, the English chatter. For a man who'd spent most of his life singing to empty streets and sleeping dogs, it was overwhelming. Backstage, the producers interviewed him. "So, Mr. Reyes, why did you decide to come here?" He smiled shyly. "I sing not because I am good, but because it reminds me I am still alive." When it was finally his turn, he walked onto the stage. The judges, Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Howie Mandel, and Heidi Klum, looked curiously at the frail Filipino man holding an old guitar. Simon leaned forward. "Hello, sir. What's your name?" "My name is Lito Reyes," he said in broken English. "I am from the Philippines." Simon smiled warmly. "Welcome, Lito. How old are you?" 71, I think. "Sometimes I forget," he chuckled, making the audience laugh. "What are you going to do for us tonight?" "I will sing, for my wife, and for my country." The theater fell silent. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began to play. The melody was simple, slow, heartfelt, raw. He sang, "Anak," by Freddie Aguilar, his accent thick, his pronunciation imperfect, but every word carried weight. "Greater than, nong isalong ka sa mundong ito. Laking tua ing magulong mo." His voice cracked on the second verse, and the audience leaned in closer. It wasn't just a performance, it was confession. The lights dimmed, faces softened, even Simon's stern expression began to tremble. When the song ended, silence hung heavy in the air. Then came a standing ovation. Simon Cowell wiped his eyes, something rarely seen on television. "Lito," he said softly, "I've been judging this show for almost 2 decades, and I don't think I've ever felt something quite like that. You didn't just sing a song, you told the story of a life." Sofia Vergara added, "You reminded us of love, of loss, and of home." It was beautiful. Howie Mandel pressed his buzzer. Not the red one, but the golden one. The confetti exploded. Mia ran onto the stage crying, hugging her grandfather as the golden lights rained down. The crowd chanted, "Lito, Lito, Lito," and the world, for that brief moment, remembered the sound of sincerity. News spread across social media. Filipino veteran brings Simon Cowell to tears. Read the headlines. Clips of his performance flooded TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Celebrities reacted. Even the president of the Philippines sent him a message. "You have made your country proud, Mang Lito." Back in Tondo, neighbors gathered around his carinderia to watch reruns of his audition. Children who once teased him for being old now called him Lolo Idol. The walls that once echoed with silence now sang with laughter again. But for Mang Lito, the fame didn't matter. What mattered was that his story, and the stories of those forgotten veterans, were finally being heard. During the semifinals, the producers asked him to perform a song in English. He was nervous. "I don't know English songs too much," he admitted. Simon visited him backstage. "Lito," he said gently, "don't worry about the language. Music doesn't need translation. Just sing from your heart again." So he chose "Imagine," by John Lennon. When he sang it live, his voice was thin, trembling, but hauntingly sincere. "Greater than, imagine all the people, living life in peace." The crowd joined in, softly singing with him. By the end, even the cameramen had tears in their eyes. Simon stood up. "You are the reason this show exists," he said. "You remind us why we listen." Though he didn't win the grand prize, Mang Lito became an international sensation. His songs were streamed millions of times. Charities reached out to help veterans. Filipino communities abroad raised funds to rebuild his home and carinderia. For the first time in decades, he didn't worry about where the next meal would come from. Months after the show ended, he returned to the Philippines. The airport was crowded with reporters, fans, and even young singers who wanted to take pictures with him. But he simply smiled and said, "I am just Mang Lito, the man who loves to sing." He rebuilt his carinderia, now renamed Lola Lorna's Kitchen, and filled its walls with photographs from his journey, one with Simon Cowell, another with the AGT stage glowing behind him. He donated a portion of his earnings to veterans groups and built a small music corner where children could borrow guitars for free. Every Sunday, he would gather the kids and teach them songs, old folk tunes, Tagalog ballads, even some Beatles classics. "Music is like rice," he'd tell them. "You share it, and everyone is full." But one night, as he sat alone by his shop, he felt a familiar breeze. The stars were bright, the street quiet. He looked up and whispered, "Lorna, did you see me? I sang our song to the world." He picked up his guitar and began to play, "Dahil Sa'yo," again. His voice wavered but carried warmth, reaching out into the night. Mia, who had just come home from university, stopped at the doorway, listening. Tears filled her eyes. "Lolo, She said softly, "You made it. You brought hope to everyone." He smiled, eyes glistening. "No, Anik. Hope was always here. We just needed to sing louder." Dash dash dash. Years passed. The world moved on, as it always does, but the legend of Mang Lito never faded. Documentaries were made about him. His story was included in textbooks as an example of perseverance and the unbreakable Filipino spirit. When he passed away at the age of 85, people from around the world sent flowers and letters. Simon Cowell even recorded a video message, saying, "Lito reminded us that the purest voices come from the humblest hearts." During his funeral, hundreds gathered in Tondo. Soldiers, students, street vendors, children, all came to pay their respects. Mia stood before his coffin, holding the same old guitar he had used on AGT. She strummed softly, her voice trembling as she sang, "Greater than, Nong Isalong Ka Sa Mundong Ito." And the crowd joined in, their voices blending into one, a chorus of grief, gratitude, and love. Dash dash dash. Years later, in the heart of Manila, a small statue was erected in his memory. It showed Mang Lito sitting on a bench, holding his guitar, a gentle smile on his face. At the base of the statue, an inscription read, "Greater than, Mang Lito Reyes, 1951-2036. A soldier, a singer, a symbol of hope. He taught the world that true music comes from the soul." Tourists often stopped to take pictures. Some would play his songs on their phones. Others would leave small notes, "Thank you for reminding us to keep singing." And somewhere, beyond time and distance, perhaps an old man and his beloved wife were together again, singing in peace, their melodies carried by the wind across the streets of Tondo, across the seas, across the hearts of those who still believe that even the simplest song can change the world. Because hope, after all, does not shout. It hums quietly, waiting for someone like Mang Lito to sing it aloud. Dash dash dash. The story of Mang Lito became a timeless reminder that no matter how poor, how broken, or how forgotten we become, there's always a song left inside us. And if we dare to share it, it might just bring tears to the eyes of even the hardest hearts. In the end, Mang Lito didn't just bring Simon Cowell to tears. He made the world listen, and remember that hope can sound like an old man's cracked voice, singing to the memory of love.